even know, if this is our intro music. This came on the podcast machine that I got. Is this a stock noise or someone else's? I don't know. We'll find out.
Stephen R. Covey once said, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." We have something to say worth listening to. This is Real Talk. The podcast. Telling the story and lessons learned of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, professional athletes, and the movers and shakers of the business world. Have you been told no? Have you been told that you can't do it? Have you been told that you'll never get to the next level? That noise. Yeah, we said it. We're telling you you can do it, and you can get to the next level. If others have done it, so can you. Real Talk. This is Real Talk, the podcast. And this is your host, Mason.
What is going on, world? It is Mason back with another episode of Real Talk. Today, our guest has a story unlike anything you've ever heard before. The day he was born, he was already set up for failure on so many fronts. His upbringing can be described as something out of a movie or the saddest set of life circumstances that any person could be dealt. But this has not stopped our guest, Nelson Tressler. In fact, he's used it as a catalyst to have a wildly successful real estate career. He's become a motivational speaker, a business owner, a mentor, and a published author of the book, The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choice. So please today, welcome with us today, Nelson. Nelson, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Mason. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. So you've got a pretty crazy, wild story that really caught my eye and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. But before we kind of dig into that, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now, and then we'll backtrack kind of to how you got up to this point.
Sure, yeah. I'm the founder and CEO of I Got Smarter, Goals Elevated, which is a goal achievement program that utilizes an app to help people finally achieve their life's biggest goals by giving them all the tools, knowledge, and especially the support to stick to their goals and to reach their potential.
Yeah, and along the way, you wrote a book as well, right? You did write a book.
Yeah. I'm the author of The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices. And I talk about my early childhood life, which we're going to get into, and kind of how that had helped prepare me for my adult life and to eventually, achieve, some things that I never even thought possible as I was growing up.
So, did you start your goal setting coaching company? Did you start that before or after you wrote your book?
I started it after. I just wrote the book to kind of promote my story and let people know that, this is this goal achievement program that I wrote and implemented wasn't something that I had just pulled off the internet. It was something that I had used over my entire life and more specifically the last 25 years to kind of come from where I started to where I am today, and show other people that, if one of us can do it, all of us can do it.
Yeah. So what would you say is kind of your biggest achievement to date that you're most proud of?
I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary, and
oh, congratulations!
Yeah, thanks. And we're raising 3 awesome young men. One of my sons just got married. I've got another son out serving a mission for his church, and it's really my family, and that has always been my number one priority. When we get into my story, you'll realize why. But I've put a lot of time and effort into that, and it was not always easy. I mean, as I talk about in my book, me and my wife were probably 1 or 2 arguments away from getting a divorce, 15 years ago or so. So it hasn't always been easy, but as I said here today, it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge feat. I mean, I think I celebrate 25-day anniversaries myself, so I mean 25 years is impressive. So congratulations again to you and your wife and your family. So let's kind of dive into the book a little bit and your upbringing, the story that that you're kind of known for, and that helped you build all these patterns of success in your life. Tell us about that, and
Yeah.
the floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely have lived quite the unique origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And, excuse me, while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in central Pennsylvania, drove into the town square. There he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window, opening fire on the police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually, my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty for what he had done. And during the trial, my mom got up and testified that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And my mom's testimony worked. My grandfather's first trial ended in a hung jury. Eventually, the state took the death penalty off the table because of my mom's testimony. And my grandfather was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he eventually spent the rest of his life, more than 40 years, behind bars, leaving behind my mom, the rest of her family. She had 15 brothers and sisters, and now me to deal with, in the wake of the consequences of what he had done in this small town. And so that's kind of where my life began. I was eventually born to a 15-year-old mother, which was hard enough, but born into this small town where everybody knew who my family was, and specifically who I was and what I represented. But my mom eventually met a man who would become my stepfather. Come to find out, he was an alcoholic, very physically and emotionally abusive to me and my mom, almost on a daily basis. And eventually, my mom and stepfather had 4 children in quick succession. And because of the lifestyle that they were living, a lot of the basic needs of my siblings fell upon me, from bottle feeding to diaper changing to even waking up at 2 in the morning to put crying babies back to sleep. And my mom would rather me stay home and help her with the babies at this time of her life, so I didn't even have to go to school. And I remember, the last day of 4th grade, going to school and being excited to find out who I was going to have the next year in 5th grade, and if my buddies were going to be in my homeroom class with me. And I remember looking down at my report card and seeing that I had straight F's, and that I wasn't going on to the 5th grade, that I had flunked the 4th grade. And the following year, I got placed into special ed to try to get me the help that I needed. At this time of my life, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't spell. Come to find out, I had dyslexia. And that's pretty much the way that my life went. I mean, there was never any food in the house. It was a crapshoot whether or not the lights would turn on if you hit the light switch. A lot of times we didn't have heat in the winter because we couldn't pay the oil bill. And life was not great. And then one day my stepfather was walking home drunk from a bar, and somebody else was driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him. And it was at this time of my mom's life, here she is. She's dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She has 5 small children. She's never worked outside of the home. And as bad as her life has been to this point, she cannot wrap her mind around how she's going to care for 5 small children on her own. And it's at this time that she decides she's going to take her own life, and she attempts suicide. And fortunately, she wasn't successful in the suicide attempt. But when she did get out of the hospital, that's when my family got split up. And that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And for the first time in my life, my survival instincts are all kind of met. There's always food in the house, there's always heat, the lights always turn on. I don't have to worry about my stepfather coming home beating me or my mom, and I don't have to care for babies anymore. And I start to kind of think where my life is heading, and I kind of look at that and see where it is heading, and I don't like where I'm heading. And one day a counselor came in from the local university to talk about how to get into college, and the bells and whistles are kind of going off in my head, and I'm thinking to myself, man, if I could get a college degree, then the rest of my life after that would be easy. And that's kind of my mindset and what I was thinking. And you know what happens whenever you tell yourself you're going to do something hard, that voice screams at you all the reasons you shouldn't even attempt it. And I remember thinking to myself, Nelson, you're in special ed, you have dyslexia, you can't read, you can't write, you can't spell. Of the family that I came from, of my mom's brothers and sisters, of those 15 kids, only 2 had ever graduated high school. None had even attended a university. But I had nothing to lose at that stage of my life. I saw where I was going to end up if I stayed on the same course that I was on. So I started to do the things that I thought would get me through to college. Long story short, it took me 12 years. It took 4 different universities, and it took 4 years in the United States Air Force. But eventually I became that first person in my family to get a college degree.
What was your degree in?
Finance.
Wow, that's not an easy degree either. Oh my gosh, that's quite the tale there. So your perspective on things is a whole lot different than than everyone else. It's cool to hear the way that you phrase it, like just because it sounds like you're already on top, like you've already conquered all the hard stuff. Now I feel like the things that you've accomplished now by building businesses and writing books and things, like all the hard work that you put in beforehand has just paid off tremendously.
Yeah, I think we're at the tail end of it. I think the problem a lot of people have is that's when they see people, because that's when they become recognizable. That's when they come on shows to share their story, is after they've made it. But I think a lot of times people think that's how it was and that it was easy. And that's one of the things I tried to accomplish with my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, is to really pull back the curtain and show people that, success is not easy. It's definitely doable. I think we all can do it. But I think there's too many people out there that look at somebody who has accomplished some success and either think that they got lucky, or they were dealt a great hand at life, or it just came easy to them. And that's what I wanted to accomplish with my book. Was I pulled back the curtain and really showed all the trials and the struggles and the heartaches that I went through, to show other people that, hey, no matter what circumstances you were born into, or no matter what circumstances you find yourself in now, you are not a victim of those circumstances. You can overcome those circumstances by making the proper choices. You can become a product of your choices.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, you had to do that like time and time again. Can you maybe dive into a little bit about how you go from having straight F's, to where you can't, read and write with dyslexia, to, getting a degree in finance? Like, how do you bridge that gap? How do you go from not being able to read to getting one of the most difficult degrees there is to get?
Yeah, it's every step. One of the things that I love, quotes and Post-its, and one of the Post-its that I have up on my wall is, no matter how big your goals are, it's only one small step to getting closer to it. And that's essentially what I did was, I didn't turn into this straight A student. In fact, I graduated high school with a 2.2 grade point average. And the only reason that I even got into college was I was a pretty good athlete, and one school was willing to massage the admission requirements to get me in to come play football for them. And when I'm talking massage, I'm talking deep tissue massage of the requirements. But it worked. It got me in. And after my first year of college, I got a bill in the mail for $3,500. And I'm living with my grandmother at this time of my life. My grandmother makes $4,800 a year on Social Security. So there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford to go to college. And that's when I joined the Air Force on the GI Bill. And, the Air Force really checked a lot of boxes for me because, first of all, it showed me how I could pay to go to college and finish my college degree. But secondly, it got me out of that small town where I represented so much. And so people looked at me a certain way and my family a certain way. And I remember it was the first time I was ever on an airplane, and I'm flying to basic training in the Air Force. And I really remember looking out that window and thinking to myself, Nelson, you can be anybody you want to be right now. You can do anything that you want to do. And it was so liberating because now when I mentioned my last name, people's eyes weren't going to dart down and know that I was part of this family, where my grandfather did what he did. And specifically that child that was at the center of the trial and everything. And when I got to the Air Force base, Air Force, my last name meant nothing. And because of that, I could do anything I wanted to do and be anything that I wanted to be. And it was just a liberating experience. And I think that helped me through the rest of my life. It kind of felt easy after being raised in an environment where, you had to overcome all those other things that happened before I was even born.
Yeah, and so that was your first chance at like a fresh, clean beginning.
Yeah.
So what did you do in the military?
I was avionics, electronics. I worked on the flight line and worked on it was a jet it's called the EF-111. It was an electronic jammer. So this plane would go in and jam all communications, all anything electrical. It would just jam and essentially blind the enemy, and then right behind my plane would come the fighters and the bombers, and essentially they could do whatever they wanted to because the enemy couldn't see them because of the jamming that my plane did.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So but besides the GI Bill, what would you say like is your biggest takeaway that you got out of the military?
The one thing I really realized in there was that other people are depending upon you, so that you had to do what you said you were going to do. I mean, I worked on jet aircraft, and if I didn't do something right, not only, could it cost, something going wrong, it could cost somebody their lives. And people were really, putting their lives in your hands, literally. And so I really upped my responsibility of what I was in charge of and the tasks that I had to do, and not taking those tasks lightly, and really understanding that people's lives were in my hands and doing what I knew I had to do every single time. So it taught me a lot of responsibility. It taught me how to work in a team. There's nothing in the Air Force that I regret. I mean, was one of the best decisions I've ever done in my life.
Where were you stationed at?
I was stationed in New Mexico, but because of the plane that I worked on was in every single, offensive since it was in existence. I got to serve over in Turkey. I got to serve in Saudi Arabia. Came to Vegas, and so I got to move around a little bit as the plane went to different destinations.
So was Vegas the last place you were stationed?
No, I mean I was always stationed in New Mexico, but Vegas was my last temporary duty. No, I think I went to Turkey after that, but I ended up meeting my wife when I was in Vegas, and we did the long distance thing for a year and ended up getting married, and that's what brought me back to Vegas.
So I'm in Vegas as well, and So I'm just kind of curious. I'm kind of curious, what was it? Was it just your wife, or was there anything in particular like that you guys especially loved about Vegas, and that you still do love about Vegas?
I love Vegas now, but in fact, when me and my wife first got married, we went back to New Mexico, and we kind of agreed, we weren't going to go back to where we were from. I mean, for various reasons, for me, I definitely didn't want to have to go back there and have to deal with everything that I had to deal with there. And then my wife didn't want to go back to Vegas. So we actually moved to Washington State, just out of the Air Force, just packed up our truck and drove up there. Didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, nothing. But
You guys just picked it.
yeah, I mean, she wanted to be close to the ocean, and I wanted to be close to the nature and the woods and the mountains, and that was a place that had both of them, and we just drove up there and found a place to live, found jobs, but it was kind of we were in a recession back then, and we ended up determining like, hey, we're not going to make it here on our own. And then one day her dad was a dentist here in Las Vegas, and his assistant had quit and was moving on, and her dad said, hey, why don't you just come back here and I'll train you to be my assistant, and Nelson can finish up school at UNLV and find a job, and then you guys can determine what you want to do once he does that. And so we ended up packing everything back up again and going back to Vegas.
Wow. But now you're a lover of Vegas now.
I love Vegas. Yeah. I mean, my wife is trying to get me to move away and I'm just like, I don't want to move. We just went through a heat wave, and, my car thermometer said 127, and so I don't like those things, but, I have a cabin up in Utah now that I'm actually going to go up this weekend and get out of the heat for
Awesome.
a little bit. So, but yeah, everything else in Vegas, I love. I love, being close to everything and having the airport right there. And you're never
Yeah.
short. You're never short of house guests when you live in Vegas, because everyone always
Never.
has a reason to come visit. So, but yeah, I still have a son who's he's going to be a sophomore this year. So definitely see myself living in Vegas, at least for the next few years here.
Yeah, I
I've
mean
got a lot of businesses here too. Still,
it's happening in Vegas. We got the Knights. There's talk about we're getting a baseball team. I mean, we got the Raiders. Like it's going down. Plus, I
Yeah.
mean, who wouldn't want to live in like the number one resort city in the entire like world?
yeah, no,
Maybe number two.
I like Vegas. I like it.
So then you got into after the military. Is that when you got into real estate?
Yeah, so I mean, I got out of the Air Force and then ended up getting my degree from UNLV. Ended up taking an internship in commercial real estate, which I had no clue what it was. I was going to be a stockbroker or something in finance, and didn't have any internships available in that. So I just took one in real estate, thinking, you know what, I wouldn't mind having some rental properties. So I took it and ended up having a knack for it. And the guy that I took the internship hired me right out of school, and kind of the rest is history. I was in that commercial real estate for 20 years, became the top salesman worldwide for a top 5 commercial real estate firm several times, closed more than $1 billion worth of transactions. So yeah, it
Wow.
treated me pretty well.
Wow. Yeah. So then, at what point did you get the thought or the inspiration then to write your book? Because I mean, that's a pretty major undertaking.
Yeah, so I mean, commercial real estate kind of opened the doors to going into a lot of other businesses, and I got into children's learning centers and opened a chain of those here in Las Vegas, and then ended up opening up a chain of pet resorts and grew that into one of the largest privately held pet resorts in the country, and was able to exit those businesses and then retire from commercial real estate. And, we all want to get to that point in our lives where money and time doesn't matter anymore. And, fortunately for me, I got there, and it's not in me to just sit there and watch waves crash on the shore. I mean, I needed to be doing something. And I started to reflect upon my life, and specifically, my childhood, and why I had lived the life that I had lived. And I realized, like, hey, I got through this, and I think I lived this life so that I could help inspire others to know that they're not victims of their circumstances, no matter what circumstances they were born in or find themselves in, or what have you, that they can become a product of their choices. And that's when I started to think about doing. I had become obsessed with goals after becoming that first person in my family to get a college degree, and realize that you could really accomplish any goal as long as you had enough time, energy, and focus. And so I had used goals, my entire adult life. And that's when I determined, like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to help other people achieve their life's biggest goals and help them, live the life of their dreams. And one of the ways that I wanted to draw attention to, my company, and specifically me, that was my story. And that's when I sat down and wrote The Unlucky Sperm Club. You're not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices. And then kind of used that to go into, my goal achievement program. I Got Smarter, Goals Elevated.
So let's talk about just like writing a book for a second. Like, do you just sit down and open your computer and go chapter 1? Like, how do you go about just writing a book and like finding a way to articulate your story? Because you tell it very well. Nothing gets lost in translation. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I have dyslexia. So writing and reading are not easy tasks for me. I've definitely learned how to manage with dyslexia, but it's still like, if I read a book or write, I'm leaving that session with a headache because of how hard I have to concentrate. But yeah, it wasn't easy. And it wasn't like I had the story. In fact, the story and the format changed several times as I went on this journey. It was originally just going to be a bunch of like short stories, and it wasn't going to kind of flow in a chronological order. And then it went from, my childhood to actually flash forwarding to back to the Great Recession in 2008 and 9, when I was struggling, in all areas of my life. The economy was imploding, my marriage was imploding, all this stuff. So I kind of built that story, and then flashed back to the lessons that I had learned in my childhood. So it's kind of like a memoir / self-help book. So every single chapter kind of takes you on this journey of trials and tribulations, but also giving you the antidotes of how to overcome those. It's really inspiring. The book has done very well. 5 stars on Amazon, and is selling very well. And I just love getting all the feedback from people who have read it, and really have allowed it to change their lives, or motivate them, or inspired them to go out and try to achieve their life's biggest goals as well.
And what did it like kind of like do to you, or like how did it affect your mindset, I guess? I would think, reflecting back on all those things, like at the level you have to write a book, from all the different angles and perspectives, and what did it do to your mindset to revisit those things in such depth like that?
Yeah, it was pretty therapeutic, actually, because I had blocked all that stuff out of my mind. In fact, the only person who knew about that part of my life up to this point was my wife. I told her before we got married, I figured she deserved to know the whole story and what she was getting into, but I never told anybody else, never told my kids, my friends, my coworkers, anybody, until I came up with the idea to write this book. So yeah, I mean, it was all blacked out of my mind. I mean, there's some horrific experiences there, and as you're sitting down and doing this, it's emotional, and to have to relive some of that brutal stuff. But it was actually a lot easier to do it on the other side of it, realizing that you had made it out of that. And, one of my favorite quotes is, never be ashamed of a scar. It just proves that you were stronger than what tried to kill you. And, as I was writing this book, I realized I'd lived this for a purpose, and that purpose is to help other people get through their trials and their tribulations, because if one of us can do it, all of us can do it. So I definitely had that purpose. I had that knowledge to know that it had turned me into the person that I was. And I was grateful for it at that stage of my life. As I was writing that book, I could actually take a step back and say I wouldn't have changed anything, because it had turned me into the person that I was, and it had allowed me to help other people change their circumstances.
Yeah. So, have you? I would assume if you had a lot of people reach out and just tell you how much like it means to them, because I imagine you opening up in that kind of way, the amount of transparency that you provide kind of inspires other people to do that, to do the same.
Yeah, almost every day. I correspond with everybody that reaches out to me. I mean, I'm out here to, I want to change the world one person and one inspiring goal at a time. So almost every day somebody reaches out to me that have read the book, and it has changed their lives. I mean, for example, my sons are into baseball, and I have two of them. I have an older one, and then my younger one that's a sophomore this year. But we were at one of his games last year, and a gentleman came up to me that I had seen around, because our older sons were on a team, and now our younger sons were on a team. And he came up to me and just like shook my hand, and just emotional, and said, "You know what? Like, when our older sons played, I kind of looked at you and your family, and just thought, man, they just have it all together, and they have no problems, and they kind of thought that." And then he read my book, and he's like, "I couldn't believe that you guys were going through all of this stuff." And after I read your book, I started treating my wife better, and I started to realize that everybody has issues, and reading your book has really saved my marriage. And that was very humbling.
That's awesome.
To know that that book had, if that was all that book was going to accomplish, if it saved one marriage and one family, then it was worth all the time and the effort that I put into to writing it. So that has kind of stuck with me, and was very humbling that something that I had put out there had actually changed not only one person's life, but a family's life. And I truly believe goals are generational, right? They don't just change your life, they change the generations to follow. And that was the instance with that book.
That's a pretty cool story. So you take this lifetime of success built upon trials and tribulations, and join the military, have a successful real estate career, write a book, and then you start your you start your company with I Got Smarter, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
So tell us more about that. Now that we know about how uber successful you are and your mindset and things like that, tell us about what it is that you guys do exactly. How do you make us smarter?
Yeah. So I Got Smarter is an acronym, and each letter stands for a specific part of our goal achievement program. And like I said, I'd been obsessed with goals and personal development my whole entire adult life, and had used it in every area of my life, to become the top salesman worldwide, and to start more than 10 businesses, and to be married for 25 years. And all those things were goals that I had. And so I saw what a difference it could make in people's lives. And when I was able to exit those businesses and get to the point in my life where I could do what I wanted to do, this is what I wanted to do. So I sat down and I wrote this program out of everything that worked for me when I was achieving my goals. and, trying to fix where I fell short and build it all into a program. And then I built it all into an app because I knew that it had to be easy to use, and, uh, you know, built the app around the program, and then, build in like a community, and build in success partners and accountability. And now this program is turning other people's lives around through goals and personal development. And you know there's a lot of things. I mean, I'm not going to be able to go through everything that's kind of different in this, but one of the things is we start every day off with a morning ritual, and we start every morning with gratitude, being grateful for what you already have. And that's not to say that we're satisfied. We're never satisfied, but we're also grateful for the things that are already good in our lives. And through the app, you're assigned with what we call a success partner. And in that success partner, they see when you're doing your task on your app, and you see when they're doing their task on their app. And now you have that sense of accountability. You're not accountable to that partner, you're accountable to yourself. But when somebody knows what you're doing and what you're not doing, that raises your level, and you actually know somebody's watching, so you're a lot more likely to get things done. And then in this program, we have a goal guide that is over top of everybody, and helping people if they get off track to help them get back on track. Because one of the things I found with people is they want to be perfect with their goals, and that's just not going to happen. And we need to get rid of that myth of perfection. We need this, look at progress as opposed to perfection. And we're going to have bad days. We're going to have bad weeks, maybe even a bad month. But that's not the bad thing. The bad thing is if you give up on your goals and you don't get back up on the horse and get going. And that's what this program will do. When you have that bad week or bad month, this program will help you get back on track and continue on your journey to living that life of your dreams.
Right. So, like, who would you kind of describe as your average user or your customer base?
I mean, it's anybody that wants to live a more fulfilling life. I mean, anybody who, no matter where you kind of consider yourself as far as like a goal achiever, this program will help you take your goals to the next level. And we work on all kinds of goals. It's not just business goals or financial goals. I mean, my biggest goal in life is to be married to my wife for 50 years. And I want to celebrate that 50th wedding anniversary. And there's a lot to that. I mean, it's staying healthy enough, and wanting to be married, and, all those things. But, I also have financial goals. I have business goals, and I have lifestyle goals, and spiritual goals. So any area of your life that you want to focus on, and because that's the only time we ever get anything done, is when we focus on that area of our lives and we focus on the things that we do. Otherwise, we find ourselves in the thick of thin things. We're always busy, we're always doing things, and it always seems like there's not enough time. But the problem is we're working on things that aren't moving that gauge on the important things in our lives, the things that are really going to matter, the things that when you're on your deathbed, you're going to look back and be glad that you did these certain things. One of my favorite quotes is, the definition of hell is the person that you could have become meets the person that you were. And the difference between those two, once you realize how much potential lied within you. So it's about focus. It's about breaking these huge goals down into bite-sized pieces. One of the things in our program is we break everything down into a 4-week sprint. The thing is, we all have these huge goals, right, that take a year, 5 years, 10 years. But in our mind, what can you really do today to work on a goal that's going to take you 10 years or 5 years? It doesn't feel like you can really do anything. But what we do is we teach you how to break those goals down into what we call a 4-week sprint. You absolutely know what you need to do in the next 30 days to get closer to that goal. And then we break those down into milestones. So there's always that clarity of what has to happen next, and there's always that urgency of getting it done. And it's truly a miracle as you do this month after month after month. What you realize is you're going to achieve those goals a lot faster and a lot more consistent than if you just have those goals out there hanging out 3, 5, 10 years from now.
I like the way you break it down, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with, they have a goal, but like, again, they don't know how to get there, right? And like you said, it can be so overwhelming to say, hey, I want to achieve this and it's 20 years away. How do I get there? Like, I love the way that you guys break it down like that. That's super cool. So,
well, yeah, we're battling our minds, right? Our minds are programmed to keep us comfortable, and if we just kind of let our mind default, it's going to talk us out of doing anything or any kind of urgency. Think about the last time that you got anything done. There was probably that sense of urgency that it had to be done. Our mind doesn't really work well. We go back to that, our term paper due. 90% of us didn't work on our term paper until the week before, or most of us probably the night before, because our brain has that sense of urgency, that time frame where it had to be done. And we're really doing that with our goal, but we're doing it in small chunks. If your goal is to make $1 million or have $1 million in savings, you got to start with $100 first, right? And a lot of times we get caught up, like, 1 million seems so much. What am I able to do? Well, we teach you how to break that down into this 4-week sprint. So now I know, what, maybe I need to cut $200 out of my budget so that I can save that in the following months. That hasn't gotten me to $1 million, but it absolutely has gotten me one step closer. And what you realize, especially with me, 25 years later, is each one of those steps is eventually going to get you to your goal and to your destination.
yeah, I mean, you can't climb a staircase and skip stairs. Every step's important. What would you say is like the biggest thing that you see people coming into your program struggling with that you're able to address and help them with?
Yeah, I think it's that consistency. It's working on your goals every single day, and that's one of the things through the app. The app, we designed it to where it takes about less than 10 minutes in the morning. We call it a morning ritual, and you start off with gratitude. You start off with learning a success principle or philosophy and really growing into becoming that individual you need to become. And then you're reviewing your goals every single day, and then you're setting goal to-dos. Like, what do I need to do to get closer to this goal today? And so every single day, at the beginning of the day exactly what you need to do to accomplish your goal. And then you're programming your brain to say, hey, these are the things I'm working on before I do anything else. Because the problem is there's always a million things to do. And a lot of times we're working on those. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't get around to working on the things that I know are really important. So this program will have you working on those things that are truly important, that are going to help you achieve those big goals. And what you realize is not only do you have enough time to finish everything else, you have a lot more time because you started off the day very organized with that task list. So you knew exactly what had to do, and you wasted a lot less time than just kind of when you finish something like, okay, what's next? This program helps you stay organized, stay focused, and stay on task.
That's awesome. I think those are valuable assets for anybody to learn just in life, and I think they're essential to goal accomplishment, So tell us when you're not coaching people or teaching people how to be successful or writing books or starting companies. What are you doing outside of work?
Yeah, like I said, I've got a teenage son, and he's into baseball. So just got back from a baseball camp up in Utah. So doing that, I love the outdoors. I love to hike. I've got the side by sides. I love doing that. I've got a Harley. That's one of my favorite things to do, is just get on there and just cruise. Got an adventure bike, so I love to hit the trails on that. And then, yeah, I got a cabin up in Utah that I love to get away to and just decompressurize up there, and uh, like to travel with my wife. So yeah, I get to do a lot of things, and very active. And but you know what? I love what I'm doing. So I pretty much, if I had to pick, I pick, you know, getting my message out there and helping people. That's probably what I love doing the most.
And so, what do you kind of feels next for you, or like big picture? Where do you want to kind of see this evolve to, or do you have any other projects in mind that you want to accomplish, kind of moving forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the one thing. In my adult life, I was always working on 10 or 12 different things. I was doing commercial real estate and building businesses and trying to run, two or three businesses while I was doing my real estate. And there were a lot of times in my life where I felt like I wasn't doing anything great. I was getting by. And that was the one thing that I kind of told myself was, if I get to that point where I can just focus on one thing and really put forth my total effort and attention and focus, that's what I was going to do. So this is what I want to do. I mean, I know this program works. I know it changes lives. I know it gives people all the tools, the knowledge, and the support that they need to accomplish their goals. And I know that it'll make the world a better place. So this is what I see myself doing the rest of my life. I don't see myself ever retiring. I want to get my message out there, a message of hope and inspiration. I want to share my message by podcast and as speaking engagements open back up, and specifically, through the I Got Smarter program, and just bringing attention to people, more and more people that can use this program and change their own lives.
I love that, man. That's a really, really awesome mindset to have, and I like how you're just doubling down on yourself. There's nothing better than that. So wrapping up here, one thing that we do is we do what's called Real Talk Rapid Fire. So basically, I'm going to shoot you a bunch of questions. They're real simple. Just first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. Don't underthink it. Get hydrated. Get ready to go. Get some chalk on those hands. Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, baby. Netflix or Hulu?
Both. Hulu right now.
Oh, you're the first person that I think that said that.
I'm watching Malcolm in the Middle, man. It's the funniest show.
Oh my gosh, I used to love that show.
I just decompressing at night. I love it. They just crack me up.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Do you like your pizza cut in triangles or squares?
Triangles.
What was your first car?
Mustang.
Ooh, V6?
No, I think, yeah, it was a V6. I don't know if I ever drove it, but we had fixed it up, and I don't know if we ever got it running, but it was my first car.
All right, fair enough. What was your first job?
Garbage man. My family owned a garbage route, so I did that since 9 years old, all the way till I went away in the Air Force.
Wow. All right. What's your favorite city in America?
Las Vegas, man.
Heck yeah. What's your favorite city outside of America?
You know what? I love New York. I love the energy there. But yeah, I would say New York.
What's your favorite book outside of the one that you've written?
The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Love
What's
it.
that about?
It's about taking small little steps to achieve your goal, and just great mindset, and a great way to just kind of look at your goals, and taking that next step and next step and next step. But the way he puts it was beautiful.
Are aliens real?
You know what? I would have said no, but I hear everyone seeing these UFOs. I mean, I absolutely believe there's people on other planets. I mean, I don't think we're the only ones, but I don't know that they're coming to this Earth. So I'd have to say no.
Okay, so other life out there, but not little green Martian men flying around in saucers like we think they are.
Absolutely. Yep.
Gotcha. Last question. Will you come back in 100 episodes, check in with us, tell us some more stories, and give us some more inspiration?
Yeah, I would love to come back. I appreciate it. Yeah.
That would be awesome, Nelson. We would really appreciate it. And I thank you for your time today. If you could, tell everybody, give us the whole spiel. Tell us the website, the LinkedIn, the where we can buy your book. Tell us it all. Give us it all. This will also be down below in the description. Nelson, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest and best thing is nelsontressler.com, which is my website. And you can find everything there. If you're interested in the book's available everywhere books are sold. Probably the easiest is Amazon. If you like listening to your books, it's also available on Audible. And if you're interested in achieving your life's biggest goals, you can download the I Got Smarter app on the App Store. And that's all one word, I Got Smarter. You can hook up with me. I'm not a huge social media guy. I never used it until I started this business, but I'm trying to figure that whole thing out. But Nelson Tressler can find you on all the socials.
Excellent, Nelson. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on today, and we'll be talking again soon.
All right. Appreciate it, Mason.
Thanks, man. All right, man. That is it. If you would, just hang around with me for one.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Mason. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. We hope you've had fun. We know we did, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Mason on Instagram at Real Talk with Mason. Walter Bagehot once said, "The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do." And we tend to agree. Till next time.